And
Okay.
people ask me a lot, how long have you been psychic? And I think I've been
Yeah.
psychic since I was in the womb. And you've
Okay.
heard the story about my birth, right? I told you the story about my birth. You've never
No,
heard this
that's what I
story?
didn't hear. No.
Okay, let's talk about my birth. So, my mother's grandmother, my mother's father's mother, was Minnie Sue Morrow Foster, and she was a Native American medicine woman and shaman.
Okay.
And in the early part of the 20th century, the 1900s, my people would people knew about her in the South, and they would come to her for her to work her medicine on them. And she was a spitfire, all of like 4 feet 10 inches tall, with a high widow's peak and a part in the middle of her hair and jet black hair, and because that was the native influence in her. And was she was like a force of nature. And she's kind of like Mark Twain. You know, Mark Twain said, I'm going to come in with Halley's Comet and I'm going to go out with Halley's Comet. And he did. He went out when Halley's Comet was seen. He came in, was born during Halley's Comet's visualization on Earth and died during that. So my grandmother kind of did the same thing. She was born on March something, 4th, 5th, something like that. And she died on her 58th birthday. So she, I mean, how often does that happen? Probably not that often.
She was
So
young.
she died on her 58th birthday of a stroke. And she told my grandfather, she said, if I die before you, no woman will ever have my things. Or I'll come back and I will get you.
Ooh.
And as soon as she died, he took all her things that were personal to her and took them out in the yard and chopped them up with an axe and
Oh
buried them.
my God.
Because he knew that she meant business. Anyway, I had that in my lineage, and my mother had some unique talents of her own. So my mother had a child 12 years before I was born and was told she probably could not have another child. And then, boop, here I came. So getting ready to be born, my mom was 29 years old by this point in time. And what had happened was I was trapped inside my mom because scar tissue had formed over the mouth of my mother's womb from her previous pregnancy. So I couldn't get out. It was preventing me from her water from breaking or something from happening. And so they decided when she was like 10 and a half, almost 11 months pregnant, that they had to do an emergency C-section. So they were knocking her out to do the procedure. And she remembers one of the nurses saying, I've heard this story numerous times from my mom when she was living. Her blood pressure's plummeting. We're losing her. And she said everything in the room disappeared and 2 angels were standing on either side of the table. And they started to lift her soul out of her body. And she looked at them and said, please, please don't take me. I don't want to leave my baby. And the angels looked at each other and then smiled down on her and started to put her body, her soul back in her body. And when she came back into her body, she crashed and let out this scream. And I was born. No cutting, no nothing. I just popped out of my mom.
Wow.
So I was born during a near-death experience that my mom was having.